I think we started very, very, how would you say, very naively and thinking we can, we can change things, let's do it. Yeah. So I'm Charlotte Malterre-Barthes. I'm Associate Professor of Urban Design at Harvard Graduate School of Design. Prior to that, I was a faculty as assistant at ETH Zurich at the Architecture Department. I started in 2011, so I used to say that I was some kind of veteran of the institution. Around 2014, there was almost like a sparking event, which was passing by in the studio, spotted a final crit with 6 guests, which all happened to be men, all happened to be dressed in black as well, facing a student who happened to be a female student presenting her work. She was also dressed in black, by the way. But somehow this kind of situation made me angry, and then speaking with a few of my other colleagues who also had spotted that, we started discussing the fact that gender equality and parity, as we termed it, was somewhat absent from the conversation at the architecture department of ETH Zurich. I studied in Marseille, and for those of you who know, Marseille is, of course, the home of Corbusier because of this iconic building. So I actually grew up in a very in the shadow of the master. I mean, the School of Architecture in Marseille is very strongly affected by that. So I would say that this conservatism in architecture is not something that jumped out immediately to me. Of course, being confronted with Switzerland as a conservative country for women, I mean the kind of the way that society is structured, and clearly the gender ratio of male to female professors was striking. The imbalance was very strong, and that imbalance was visible a little bit with the assistants as well, less so among students. So it was clearly this kind of pyramid where students are 50-50 male and female, and then it kind of decreases as you go up. I would say that there were barriers that are related to the inertia of the institution to change, actually, the fact that it's a machine and it's very slow to change. Direct hostility from fellow assistants, sometimes when people questioned the urge to question, in a way, the fact that how dare you question certain things. I think that is sometimes the case. From the institution itself, never directly, because the institution was supportive in terms of funding, for instance. The department was always generously funding the events that were put forth by the Parity group. What you would find would be that as you push for change, many things are let's say validated or approved, but then they are not implemented. The tone changed, I would say. The conversation shifted, because when we started the Parity group, so pre-Me Too, it remained a marginal conversation. I think it annoyed a lot of people also, and it was definitely this kind of feminist killjoy vibe. No, it's like the Parity group, scrutinizing lecture series and representation. I mean, how dare they, kind of vibe. And then the Me Too wave hit, and I mean, it hit globally, but it also hit the department. Then it became very important for the department to actually have a group that is already working on that. So in that sense, the department really embraced the work of the Parity group, because it was in its own interest. So it's, in a way, we would say that we would be instrumentalized, but we also instrumentalized back. The first success is to have created a space, a virtual space, a moral space, where diversity and equity exists, let's say. So that's successful because it was absent. In terms of the pressure that has been exerted on the department to hire more female professors, for instance, I think that this also has played a role in the sense that there is a sense of scrutiny. People are watching, students are expecting a more equal environment. They want to be taught equally by men and women, and also they wish for more diversity in that sense. So gender diversity, but also racial and background, cultural diversity. I think you grow also in your own activism. You grow, and I would say that the Parity group was founded first with this question, or towards changing this question of representation of women, but very clearly that you need to also to address the structural problems. And the structural problems at the school, they are not just about gender, they're about class, they're about race. So this is really about shifting the focus onto strictly gender and white women, let's say, to intersectionality, to understanding that fighting for change is ultimately something about convergence of struggles, recognizing the role of architecture in racial injustice, also in larger discussions on land property, on access to housing, on these kind of questions. I think that curriculum changes are also about excellency. It's interesting how excellency is always something that is brought forth at ETH. It's like we only hire the best, but what about people who have been teaching the same thing since decades? How excellent are these people? I think it would be interesting to have a pairing with, for instance, students or assistants that would actually help to craft a curriculum that is addressing the needs of architecture today. We discussed, I will give an example of how we approach people who were working in conservation and who dismissed the need to change the curriculum because they were working with know-how and construction skills, right? So, for instance, how bricklaying in the 19th century was done. But if you look at the question of labor, for instance, this is crucial to changing your curriculum. Why not change perspective and look at your brick wall from the 17th century in the light of labor? Who actually built that wall? I'm quite hopeful because, as I said, the wind has changed, I think. So I believe that the institution is aware of its urgency. I also think that the new president is actually an intelligent man, and he has recognized that to be more fair and more equal is actually to the benefit of the institution. So it's the minimum that the department should do, which is to hand over all of those to women and or ideally diverse candidates. Will that happen?